She stormed onto my porch, waving a paper like it was a court order. "You're trespassing," she yelled. "This property belongs to the HOA now." I didn't move. I was just sitting in my own lawn chair, on my own porch, sipping coffee. "I don't think that's how it works," I said calmly. My voice irritated her even more. Karen, the self-declared queen of the HOA, slammed the paper on my chest. "You left the HOA last month. That voids your privileges. You're done here." I stood up slowly, trying to keep my cool. "Karen, I own this house. Leaving the HOA doesn't change that." But she was already dialing her phone. 911? "Yes, there's a man illegally occupying a home in our neighborhood. He's being aggressive. Send someone fast." My jaw clenched. I knew how fast lies like that could turn deadly. Within 5 minutes, 2 squad cars rolled up. Karen practically skipped toward them, acting like she was leading some grand arrest. "That's him," she pointed. "He threatened me and refuses to leave." One of the officers walked toward me cautiously, hand on his holster. "Sir, we need to talk." I nodded. "Of course. But before anything else, just wait." Right then, a black SUV pulled up across the street. The door opened and out stepped my son, fully suited in crisp military uniform. He closed the door, squared his shoulders, and started walking toward us. Karen's smug face dropped instantly. "Is there a problem here, sir?" My son asked the officer, flashing his ID. "This is my father. He owns this home. He has the deed and I have his legal paperwork in my car." Karen stuttered. He's not part of the HOA anymore. "He can't—" My son cut her off. "Ma'am, the HOA is not above state property laws. You've just filed a false report. That's a crime." And that was just the beginning. Karen's eyes darted from me to my son, then to the officers, who were now clearly less interested in her story. One of them stepped aside and started checking my son's credentials. The other walked toward Karen. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "we're going to need to verify everything you claimed." "I am the HOA president," she barked. "I have authority here." He forfeited his rights when he opted out. "That means we can reclaim the property under Section—" "That's not how property law works," my son interrupted coldly. "You can't reclaim someone's private residence like it's lost luggage." Karen's face twisted. "You people come here and think you can ignore the rules we built?" "You mean the rules you made up?" I snapped. "Because last week you left a fake notice on my door saying I had 30 days to vacate. That's not in any real HOA policy." The officer's radio crackled. "Dispatch confirms the house is privately owned by the resident. No legal claim from the HOA on file. Repeat, no holder violation detected." Karen's confidence shattered like glass. But still, she tried. "There's more to this. I have connections. I know the city board." "I've got footage," I said suddenly, reaching for my phone. "You put that fake notice on my door. You yelled racial slurs at my neighbor's daughter. And last week, you took a hammer to my mailbox. It's all recorded." Now it wasn't just the officers looking at her. Neighbors had started gathering near the sidewalk, phones out, filming silently. Karen turned, her voice shaking. "You can't do this to me. I run this community." My son stepped closer, towering over her now. "No, ma'am. What you've been running is a fake regime built on fear and fake authority. And that ends today." Karen backed up slowly, suddenly quiet. But I could see her lips tighten like she wasn't done yet. I should have known then. She had one more trick up her sleeve. And it was going to hit harder than anything yet. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of banging, metal slamming against metal. I rushed outside barefoot and froze. My truck was gone. Instead, there was a yellow slip stuck to my front door with red tape. Reading, "Vehicle removed per community order, HOA code 14B. I couldn't believe it. My son had parked it right in our driveway before leaving for base. No violations, no warnings, just gone. I called the city impound. They had no record of the vehicle being towed by municipal order. It was a private tow, they said, authorized by someone named Karen L. Brimmer. I hung up and just stared at the empty driveway, chest burning. She went too far this time. My neighbor, Mr. Daniels, an old vet who barely spoke, walked over. "Saw a red pickup towing it around 3 a.m., he said. "Didn't look official. 2 men, no uniforms. So it wasn't just petty games anymore. It was theft." I opened my security app. Footage confirmed it. Karen was outside at 2:56 a.m., watching from her porch as 2 men loaded my truck onto a flatbed. She even waved when they were done. I sent everything to my son. Within hours, he had already forwarded it to the base legal team and a retired federal judge he knew. Turns out removing someone's vehicle without legal cause, that's grand theft auto. I printed the footage, screenshots, call logs, all of it, and drove to the HOA office. Karen was sitting behind the desk like a queen on her throne. "You can't just walk in here," she sneered, not even looking up. "I didn't come to ask permission," I said calmly, placing the evidence folder on the table. She glanced at it and scoffed. "So? Your vehicle was in violation. You just committed a felony," I whispered. "And I gave everything to the DA's office this morning." For the first time, Karen looked scared, but not for long. She stood up, pulled something from her drawer, and slid it across the table toward me. It was a cease and desist letter, with my name on it. She grinned like a devil. "Let's see how far you get when I drag you into court for harassment and slander." It hit me right then. Karen didn't care about rules or law or even justice. She was playing a game, and she was willing to burn everything down to win it. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that cease and desist letter. It was filled with lies, accusing me of defamation, intimidation, even threats to community safety. It was signed by some shady lawyer out of state, probably a friend of hers. But what broke me wasn't the letter. It was the sound of my 10-year-old daughter crying in her room. She had heard Karen yelling again earlier, calling us dangerous and unstable. Now my little girl was scared to ride her bike outside. That was my line. "You mess with my property, I'll fight back. You mess with my family, you just started a war." I got on a call with my son again, and this time, we weren't just talking legal routes, we were talking exposure. We decided to go public. By morning, my son had reached out to a local news outlet, using his military clearance to get them to listen. The story was simple. Veteran's family targeted by HOA, president, false reports, stolen property and abuse of power. They showed up that afternoon with cameras. I stood on my porch holding the cease and desist letter in one hand and the original property deed in the other. My neighbors watched from their lawns. Some nodded, some looked away. But when the reporter asked if I had proof, I looked straight into the camera and said, "I've got everything." Footage, audio, witness statements, and a stolen truck. Karen thought I'd stay quiet, but she forgot something. I don't scare easy. Within hours, the clip went viral. Thousands of shares. Comments flooded in. "This is America. We don't let HOA tyrants take people's homes. Fight back, sir. Expose her." And the next morning, Karen's name was trending online. But the real twist came later that evening, when someone slipped an anonymous envelope under my door. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note that read, "You don't know half of what Karen's hiding. This will bury her." I plugged it in with shaking hands, not knowing yet that what I was about to see would blow the whole thing wide open. The screen lit up. It was security footage, high quality, date stamped. Not from my cameras, from inside the HOA's private office. Whoever recorded this had access Karen never thought anyone else had. The first clip showed her in a meeting with two men. One of them was the same guy who towed my truck. Karen handed him a thick envelope and said, "Make it disappear. I want that driveway empty by morning." The second clip hit harder. Karen sat across from a local city official. She slid a document toward him. "This new zoning draft. I want it approved. If we can reclassify 3 more lots, I can list them on the development bid." The man hesitated. "That's not legal. These homes are owned." Karen leaned in. "No one will fight it. And if they do, we'll make them look unstable, like him." She was talking about me. My fists clenched. She wasn't just abusing power, she was running a private operation to push out homeowners, rezone the land, and profit off of it. And I was the first domino. I sent the footage to my son. Within 15 minutes, he called back. His voice was sharp. "Dad, this is bigger than we thought." That city official she met with? "He's under investigation for fraud. This could turn into a federal case." The next morning, I walked straight into the HOA office with a small thumb, drive in my pocket and calm fury in my chest. Karen looked up and immediately stood. "What now? Come to yell some more?" "No," I said. "I came to offer you a chance. One chance. Step down quietly, apologize publicly, and maybe I don't hand this drive to the FBI." Her face twitched just for a second, but then she laughed. You really think a little footage is enough to take me down? I've been running this place for 10 years. No one's touched me. I leaned in. That's because no one ever had a camera inside your office. That wiped the smile off her face. You've got 24 hours, I said as I turned and walked out. But I had a feeling. She wasn't going down quietly. She'd rather set the house on fire than hand over the keys. The next 24 hours were chaos. Karen didn't back down. Instead, she doubled down. Flyers appeared all over the neighborhood that morning. Beware of dangerous resident, fake veteran. Aggressive behavior reported. My face was printed in black and white like a wanted criminal. She even hosted an emergency HOA safety meeting on the community lawn that night. With folding chairs and a cheap megaphone, about 20 people showed up, most just curious. A few looked nervous. A few looked angry. Karen stood tall, acting like a hero. I did what I had to do to protect this community. If that means removing dangerous people, so be it. We don't need outsiders bringing trouble here. That's when I showed up. I walked straight through the crowd calmly. People parted. The moment she saw me, she flinched. I pulled out my phone, turned the screen to the crowd, and pressed play. Her voice filled the air. Make it disappear. I want that driveway empty by morning. Gasps rippled through the group. I kept going, playing the second clip. The conversation with the city official. If we can reclassify 3 more lots, I can list them on the development bid. Like him. Now people weren't just shocked, they were angry. Even the quiet neighbors, the ones who never said a word, were muttering now. Karen reached for her megaphone, panicked. These are deepfakes. He's making this up. He's trying to smear me. Someone shouted back, "That's your voice, Karen." Another added, "You tried to rezone my lot last year." Her face cracked completely. She dropped the megaphone and tried to push through the crowd, but no one moved. My son stepped forward from the back. He had arrived just in time, still in uniform. He handed a white envelope to her. Karen Brimmer, this is a formal notice of investigation by the County Fraud Unit. And a court summons. You'll need to come in next week. Silence. All the power drained from her face. She wasn't untouchable anymore. And for the first time in her reign of fear, she looked small. As she was led away, one of the neighbors whispered, "You just saved this whole street, man." But I knew it wasn't over yet. Not until the final piece fell into place. Not until everyone saw what she did to my daughter. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Neighbors filled the benches. Local reporters lined the back wall. Even the city official Karen had tried to bribe was now sitting behind the prosecution desk, cooperating to save his own skin. Karen sat stiffly beside her lawyer, pale and silent. Gone was the smug, screaming tyrant. What replaced her was a crumbling shell in designer clothes, blinking nervously under courtroom lights. Then the prosecution rolled the final piece of evidence. It wasn't about stolen trucks, or fake notices, or land scams. It was about my 10-year-old daughter. The footage played on the giant monitor, recorded from a neighbor's ring cam. Karen pacing outside our fence, yelling into her phone. She's always out there on that stupid bike. I'll call child services if I have to. I'll make them leave. Then came the part that broke the whole room. Karen reached over the fence. My daughter had stopped her bike nearby. Watching with innocent confusion, Karen pointed a finger inches from her face and hissed, "Your daddy's dangerous. You don't belong here." The entire courtroom went still. You could hear someone gasp in the back. My daughter buried her face into my shoulder, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I cried, but not from pain, from relief. Because finally, everyone saw it. The lies, the abuse, the threats, all of it. Karen's lawyer asked for a recess. The judge refused. The jury returned in 40 minutes. Guilty on 6 counts, including harassment, property theft, and child endangerment. She was sentenced to 18 months and stripped of any future community leadership rights. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was what happened after. Neighbors started knocking on my door, not to complain but to thank me. My daughter rode her bike again, free and smiling. The new HOA president was a retired teacher who hosted barbecues, not witch hunts. And my son? He said something I'll never forget. You didn't just protect our family. You gave this whole neighborhood its voice back. And as I stood on my porch watching the sun dip below our quiet, peaceful street, I smiled. Because they tried to force me out of my own land. But they forgot I fought for it. Subscribe my YouTube channel for more stories.